Resume recording. So we are recording now. Yay, always a good thing. We have, okay, oh, thank you. Thank you, Debbie, if you'll just keep letting people in. We have so many questions today, which is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in, and so that we have enough time to get through everything, and because I don't want to keep you over. I know most of you are either at the end of your school year or you're grading finals, or you're just done and like breathing, and you're worn out. So we are, and this is recorded and we'll provide it later. So if there's something that I say that you're like, oh, someone else should hear that, no worries. I just checked. We are recording. Okay, so I'm Kathy Almy. We're going to do developmental math redesign Q&A. And what I'm going to do is we just took all the questions that we got, and I'm going to go through hopefully all of them. And then I'm going to, so let me, before I get going too far, that's the main thing that we're going to do. I'm going to preview something that we've got coming up, because we know that this is something we've been working on for a couple of months, because we know co-recs are, I mean, gosh, they're probably 75% of the questions I got were on co-recs, co-requisite courses. So we will talk about that in case you're like, I still don't know what you're talking about, Kathy. We will talk about that. But I want to preview something we've got coming up, so in case you're interested in it. And I also want to share about another option we have. Schools are at different places with redesigns, and this was the thing that we decided to go all in on this year, was helping schools. So we figured out some different ways to do that depending on where you're at. Okay, so and also go ahead and put questions in the chat box if you have them. If we have more questions and we can get to them, I will. So let me make sure I can see the chat. Okay, so I've got that. Let's do it. All right, dive in. So I think all of you know who I am, but just to remind you real briefly, and so you know my background, I was tenured college math faculty for years, and I've also authored a textbook with Pearson in the developmental space. Developmental math is something I've had huge passion for a very long time, and it's really, I teach college level math. I still teach for my old college. I'm teaching statistics this fall. It's my absolute favorite course. I love teaching developmental math and working with these students. And even though that's evolving, how we're doing that, there's still students that are unprepared, and there's still need to work with them. So my hope is that, based on the questions that we got, that'll ease some of your concerns today, because in my world, in my opinion, we don't need to scrap Dev Ed altogether. And I know we have a lot of Illinois folks on here today. And if you're in Illinois and you're in college, they are not scrapping Dev Ed altogether. Now, definitely they're changing, they meaning like policymakers and people at the state level, they're changing what it's going to look like, but they're not scrapping it. So I want you to just have some faith in that. And we're going to go through all kinds of ways that you can still make Dev Ed work. If you're a non-Illinois person, or you're not at the college level, no worries. There's gonna be plenty here for you as well. It's for everyone, because these questions are ubiquitous. It doesn't matter what state you're in. Okay, I have done so much with redesign. That is the thing. I have tons of experience, boots on the ground, fighting the good fight, having conversations with people, not always great conversations, but we get someplace. And I've done this locally at my college, done it throughout my state in Illinois, and I've worked on national initiatives as well. So I'm very familiar with policy, how you get things done, legally and ethically and morally and all of that. So nothing underhand. We're doing it the right way, above board. And now I am a consultant in my company, and we were consulting on all kinds of things for a long time, but we really narrowed our focus, because this is a huge need with helping schools with their redesigns. And developmental math has a lot of pieces to it. So if you're a high school person here today and you're like, well, I need help with the transitional math side of it. Transitional math is one developmental math type of redesign and intervention. There's a lot of pieces to developmental math, and they don't all just exist at the college in the first semester. Okay, so let's dive in. I didn't really prep answers. I scanned through these, but I wanted to just go more with like what I really think, and I don't want to censor myself. So, which I'm I don't always do anyway, so let's just do it. All right, how do we motivate students? Like, that's the $1,000,000 question. I will tell you what I do to motivate students. It doesn't always work, but it works 9 times out of 10. The main thing is that I'm just gonna be really frank, that we don't BS them and tell them that there are certain things that you're gonna have to learn to be able to do this because of your job in real life. It's not true. There are certain things that we are teaching them that they are not ever going to do again. And some of those things are changing and some of them are going to take a little bit longer to change. But telling them like, you're going to have to be able to do this is not motivating. What I find is motivating is engaging students and having them work on meaningful problems. And if they're not meaningful, like if they're not real life, at least they have some teeth to them. There's something to think about, talk about, and do. I work problems regularly with my students that aren't necessarily set in a real life context, but we can get a conversation going because there's something there to chew on. So meaning we got to get away from just doing solve, simplify, graph. We got to do more problems that ask more of students, what I often call non-Googleable problems that you can't just put in photomath or Wolfram Alpha, that ask us to dig further. Those kinds of problems and how you ask questions are how you can motivate students. And this does relate to redesign because we're redesigning in all kinds of ways. It's not just the structure of the course or where the course is, but it's also what happens in the course. So motivation is key. The main thing is I feel like we have to get past just pushing symbols and us just being at the board, showing them how to push symbols, because now more than ever, we cannot convince them that that is time well spent. They know that there is technology available to do all of that. So we have to have a more compelling reason for why we're doing the things that we're doing. Okay, how much do I need to change my current curriculum? So I went through all the questions that we had and I tried to categorize them in different ways and also make sure I understood if the person was coming from the high school level, the college level, if there was something in particular they were talking about. This just was just a question. It wasn't related to any particular level or state or anything like that. So when you're doing a redesign, it depends. There are some co-recs. When people implement a co-requisite remediation, they don't necessarily have a huge change to their curriculum. There are other redesigns, like if you decide to go to a more contextualized developmental math class, there's going to be a lot of change to your curriculum. So this varies. My thing is that this is just one piece, changing what we teach, and sometimes it's not what, it's how and how we engage students. Sometimes it is what. We do need to update our curriculum and we do need to change what we're doing. I know that people get nervous because they're like, oh my gosh, does this mean new textbooks, new systems? Most people are worn out right now and they really can't take on one more thing. It's kind of always been that way, but with the pandemic, it just took things, a lot of people that are like, they're just spent. So yeah, we do need to change some usually, especially if you are in the situation where you are teaching the traditional pre-algebra, beginning algebra, intermediate algebra, if that's what you were referencing, and I'm not sure if that's what this person was referencing, that needs to change and is changing in most places, either by mandate or they're getting near mandates. But that curriculum, even though we have taught it for 50 years now, and it's been around, it's not always successful. Can we find students that succeed in it? Yes. Is it successful as a whole in getting students to a college level class and through a college level class? And anymore, that's how we're defining success. It's not just internal course pass rates. It's what happens to the student while they're at the college. What are they really accomplishing? And so that curriculum is changing. More on that in a little bit. Is it all going away? No. All right, so how do you address faculty who are adamant about mechanics and refuse to allow graphing calculator use? Mixed drinks? I don't know. So here's the reality. Are we going to convince everyone? No. There are some people who are just not going to be convinced, and I'm not going to name I'm not going to call them names. They often have very good reasons for what they believe, but a lot of times they're working off of assumptions that are no longer true. They might have been true at one time, but they may not be true anymore. And I really feel like the pandemic, I mean, I know that that's going to become such an overused thing. Well, the pandemic, now we do since COVID, but the reality is it's shown a light on a lot of things, especially in the STEM curriculum that have just changed and evolved with with the technology we have and the resources we have available to us. I mean, the reality is all of our students are walking around with one of these in their pocket. I mean, and I used to say most of them try to go buy a flip phone because my mother wanted one. Good luck. You can't even get them. They only sell smartphones anymore. So they're all walking around with the internet in their pocket, and we can't deny its existence. Now, are we going to get every faculty member on board with this? No, but I do think it's worth having the conversations and working on this and seeing what we can make happen. Some faculty, if they just see that this course is changing, it's going down another road, they will just pick other courses to teach. And I'm okay with that because I have done this for so long. I used to think I can get anybody to change. And it's like, no, that's not realistic. You can't, but you can get pretty far on a lot of things with conversations and compromise and with showing faculty. Here's one of the best things I try to do is give them examples from real life. I've been blessed. We're going to go with blessed today. He'll be happy I said that. I've been blessed to be married to an engineer for 24 years. So being with an engineer, I've already seen what STEM in real life looks like for my adult life. But I also see it. My daughter's about to graduate with an engineering degree. She's just got one more year to go. My son wants to go into medicine, and I'm seeing STEM from another perspective. And the idea that these high stakes tests, and we're going to memorize completely freeze up there. I think I'm back. 1 second. You gotta love when. Okay, and we're back. Okay, that has changed. That has really changed. The idea that, oh, students have got to memorize all these things and, oh, they're not going to be allowed to use a calculator. That's just not true. It isn't. We make those restrictions in a lot of artificial cases, but in real places, like when students take their tests for their engineering exams, when they take their tests for major exams like MCAT and different things, they are allowed resources. They don't have to memorize. Now, medicine is one of those places where you still have to do a ton of memorization for necessity, but there's a lot of places, including engineering, where memorization is not needed. And the students that we're talking about in these redesign courses are often not headed towards correct. And I believe that, yeah, the MCAT doesn't allow that. I can believe that they don't allow calculators, but I do know that one thing I heard recently from some doctors and a group of doctors and different medical professionals that were speaking to some high school students was that they have gotten away from that the high stakes, just like the MCAT, is like everything. That they've realized that does not tell them everything that they need to know. And they've also moved towards multiple measures because they want to see, does a student have work ethic? Not just can they take a great test. Like my son is a fabulous test taker and he is lazy at homework, really lazy. I swear we're the only family that can't wait for there to be another test because it's like, oh, maybe he'll raise his grade this time, because he does not do his homework at all. And we told him, you want to be a doctor, you're going to have to work on that a lot because your work ethic is going to have to change massively if you want to go into any kind of medical field. So one thing is there are places where we put artificial constraints on things that don't exist. There are some places where it still exists, but this is all changing. Okay, we'll come back to that and more because I know we have another question on this later. But are we going to get them all on board? No, but we can make movement. That is possible. I've seen it time and time again. All right, how in a 3 or 4 credit hour course will math study / college readiness skills, confidence, and or other soft non-cognitive skills be adequately addressed along with the content? Wow, that is a mouthful, but a good question. So how do you do this? Basically, if you're teaching like a 3-4 credit hour course, how do you get in all of these other things that are non-math related? How do you do that adequately? I'm not going to profess that I can tell you that in 5 minutes because I can't, but I do know it can be done. And I'm going to share with you something later on where I'll just go ahead and tell you what we're doing. I've worked with some math faculty who have done extensive co-requisite implementations, large ones, big departments, lots of courses, all different kinds of things. And we have come up with a professional development where we've mapped out all the different pieces of what it takes to build a co-rec, including the soft skills aspect of it. So more on that in a little bit, and this isn't a giant pitch for that. I'm going to answer tons and tons of questions, but I am going to tell you that I know we can't answer everything right here. So we have been developing a new professional development because we know the need is so great. Okay, but one thing about this, I will say, in your co-rec sections, the number one thing that teachers who teach co-requisites say is that they are working on things that are non-math related, not just the math, because so many students who are not college ready, it's not just that they don't remember how to solve an equation that's a linear equation. They also, a lot of them don't know how to be a student. And so that is a big component of a co-requisite course, are these soft skills, these study skills. I hate that they're called soft skills, but they're super important. And they're what they need to have to be successful in their job and in life and in college classes. It's not just college readiness. Okay, I looked to see if there was anything like, is this for a particular state or school or anything? And it wasn't. It was just, what book or software do you recommend? That's kind of a big open question. And so I thought about, this is one I did think a little bit about before I came to you guys. So many of you know this, I write for Pearson. I'm an author, and I love most of Pearson's products that I have used. I mean, granted, I've changed different things over time, and I've used so many different things, but I do love my math lab. Now, I know lots of people use Alex and absolutely love that. And it can especially work well with Alex, the PPL for the placement piece. I know a lot of people are really content with that. I've used Alex in the classroom. I used it for a decade. I did not love it in the classroom, but I've heard a lot of people be a lot happier with it with the placement piece. Here's what I would suggest to you, just in general. I don't care what publisher you're looking at or whoever, if you're looking at OER or whatever, look for materials that are aligned with the instructional techniques that you are going to use. So let's say you're going to do a co-requisite. Most of these publishers have come up with materials that are built to work in a co-requisite course, meaning they're going to have things with study skills that are included. They're going to have like extra skill worksheets. They're going to have the support for the just-in-time remediation, so that you are not inventing the wheel. Okay, look for things like that. If you want to teach a contextualized course, look for materials that were built for teaching a contextualized course. Yes, I wrote one like that, but there are also other materials that do that as well. What I see sometimes is that I've seen this with transitional math in Illinois. It is supposed to be contextualized whenever possible, heavy on problem solving. We're supposed to go deeper with problems. And I will see schools that they want to use as their base material, a very traditional algebra book, and just throw in some projects. You're going to be fighting what that was built on every single day. So if you want to have a course that has a particular philosophy, you need to have materials that support it. So that would be my main thing. I don't care where you get them from, because there's all kinds of places anymore to get materials, but be on the lookout that they support what you're going for in terms of the change. Even if that's going to make you a little uncomfortable, that is, you're going to have less that you have to do, and it's going to be easier in the long run than trying to keep your existing book and make these changes fit within it. Sometimes that is harder to do. Okay. Got this from a high school teacher. Integrated versus traditional sequence. Okay, this is another giant topic and area, and I've seen both done well and both done poorly. So in my heart of hearts, I think integrated has more of a potential to be a good experience for students. However, it can be done very, very poorly. So if you're looking at this, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. The traditional algebra sequence in high school would be algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and then maybe pre-calculus or something else, or statistics, whatever. An integrated approach would be like math 1, 2, 3, where you're going to have algebra, geometry, and you're going to have some data analysis in each year, and it's not going to be chunked so defined into just algebra and just geometry. Here is my main suggestion, no matter what you have. So let's say you're in a school where they've already spent thousands of dollars on books, and there's no change in that anytime soon. And it's one of these. It's going to be one of them. Okay. The main thing is you need to have an even mix of the application with the skills. The integrated curriculum that sometimes does not work is the one that goes too far in the direction of activities, which could be awesome, but they don't have enough skills. And then so students aren't learning what they need on that level. Traditional can go too far in the direction of skills and not have enough of what does this have to do with anything? How are we connecting this? How are we using this? So whichever one you have, be on the lookout for, is there a balance with the other aspect, be it skills or applications, because both of these lean one way more than another, typically. Okay, so that would be my suggestion. And here's another one. No matter what you teach out of, you're probably going to have to supplement. We all know this as teachers. There is no perfect book. I will tell you this right now. It's sitting right behind me. The book I wrote, it's in the 3rd edition now. Yay! I'm so proud of it. I still make tweaks to it, and I wrote it. There's just no such thing as a perfect book that you're not going to need to make changes to. That's just, we're teachers. That's the way it's going to be, and that's okay. And there's so much stuff on the internet anymore. You don't even have to invent the wheel. Usually you can go find the wheel. You just have to figure out which one you want. Okay, so do you still have standalone developmental math courses, and what are they? Okay, so definitely we're going to head into the land now more of developmental math redesigns at colleges, and lots of them are really heavily focusing on co-requisites, which I'm going to tell you right now, I used to be like totally against them. And now I definitely think they have their place. I do not think they are a magic bullet. Okay. And I do not think that we need to scrap DevEd altogether. This is faculty member Kathy, who has taught thousands of developmental students. We are going to have students, especially if you are at a 2-year college and not a 4-year college, we have students that come to us functioning at the 4th grade ability. You know it as well as I do. It's like, how are we going to get them into certain courses? Okay, how are we going to make them successful? They're not all going to be successful in a co-rec. And anybody that's really knows co-recs will admit that too. They're not all going to be successful, but you can get a whole lot more through with co-recs, but you can't get them all through. So to have a successful approach, co-recs are only one piece. It seems to be the piece that we keep focusing on. And I'll tell you something, as someone who's done a lot of this work at lots of different levels, the reason administrators tend to focus on co-recs are a couple of reasons. For years ago, does anybody remember Emporium models? Has anybody ever been around to remember that? Okay, for the longest time, that was what they focused on. That was the magic bullet of 2007 to 2012, okay? Now it's co-recs. They really like, and if you're an administrator, this is no offense to you, but administrators usually glom onto those because they are more about the structure of the course and less about the content. Okay, in their mind, that's like, are we chunking it? Are we doing a different section? Do I need to schedule someone? It's things that they know about. Yes, there's data. Okay, I'm not saying that there's not data, but there's other interventions that also have great data that they don't get nearly as excited about because they're more content related. Co-recs and emporiums are more structure and policy related, especially like multiple measures placement, same thing. They will get more excited about it because it's something in their wheelhouse. And they'll feel like they can actually be part of it. Whereas a lot of them don't have a math background. Some do, but a lot don't. And when you get into the more content related redesign parts, they kind of feel like they can't contribute as much. So they don't focus on those a lot of times. All right, so Will you still have standalone developmental math courses? Yeah, I think you should. I don't, and I think now, do we need to have 4, 5, 6, 7 of them? Nope. But do you need to have some? Yep. And I'm going to be honest with you, the course that I worked on forever, in Illinois, it's called PMGE. Around the country, it's called math literacy. Some places call it Quantway, whatever. It's a non-STEM developmental math course. If you're going to only have one course, that's the course you should have. And that is not something like, I'm like, ooh, let's sell a book. Okay, if I told you guys how much I made on a book, you'd laugh. Okay, I am not rolling in the dough as an author. And just remember that if you think you're going to write a book, you're not going to be rolling in dough anytime soon. Those days are gone, but they were for other authors 50 years ago. But the point is that course for years in several states has been like, if they could only have one course, they kept gravitating towards that. Why? Because it hits the algebra and it aligns to careers, and it already has embedded in it the soft skills and the projects and all those pieces we need, but it gets enough algebra as well. Okay, so that non-STEM course, if you have enough algebra in it, can serve a student going to intermediate algebra as well. So it can work for both of them. And it's going to be a better alternative than beginning algebra. It's got more use and it's got more to it. And here's what's really great about it. It's built for the students who take it. Beginning algebra is just algebra 1 that's in high school done twice as fast. It was not built for a 19 or 35-year-old who's coming back and was never good at math, and this is their second, third, or fifth time through it. And that's another reason why these they're called developmental math pathways courses that were deliberately built for developmental students are more successful, because they're built for engaging content. Again, I don't care whose materials you use. They're built to engage students and not just do skills. And they have a lot of success with them too. Okay. Can we maintain some kind of developmental class or some developmental classes and use co-recs for students whose skills are close enough to placing in their required classes? I believe you can. And if you are in Illinois, we're going to get to the Illinois questions more in a second, the law will allow you to as well. Okay, so if you're wondering, can I even do that and still be in compliance? Yes, you can. Okay, how can I not feel so overwhelmed implementing this class? This person, I believe, is implementing transitional math. If they are on here and want to elaborate more in the chat, feel free. If you are implementing transitional math, I'm just going to do a shameless plug because we work so dang hard on it, and we should. I know how hard all of that is. I know how hard it is to implement the courses and how many changes you have to make. That's why we built so many things that help schools with them. So if you're implementing the QL stats course or you're implementing the STEM course, reach out to me. We have stuff to help you be able to do this and not feel alone. The biggest thing that we did, and it has worked really, really, really well, is this past school year, the 2021 school year, we had a monthly work group of transitional math teachers all throughout the state that met once a month for an hour on Zoom. And so many of them said, you're still going to do this next year, right? Even though we're not new to this anymore, we just need to have some people that are in the same boat as us to talk to. We feel so alone. And it's like, so we are continuing that, and we're doing more with it for our transitional STEM as well. The idea is, yeah, we provide materials. Yeah, we provide professional development. We have a nice little package. We put all those in, but we also don't just throw you to the wolves and say, have fun. We help you all along the way because we know that that's what's necessary. Okay, so how do you not feel so overwhelmed? Reach out for help, and we'll give you the options, and you can see what you want to do with them if any of them would work for you. Okay, how do we shrink our developmental math sequence and ensure students are ready for college level math? There is so many different ways to do this. Resources for tech math pathway. So I want to address this question real quick. The state does have free resources for the tech math pathway. However, I have not been able to find teachers who are willing to test them and share their experience. So if anybody ever finds in Illinois high school teachers who have done the tech math pathway and are willing to tell others how it went, good, bad, and ugly, send them to me, because I love finding teachers who have done this stuff and get them to help other teachers do this. And I pay them because you guys don't have extra time. Nobody does. Okay, how do we shrink our developmental math sequence? Okay, so here's the thing. This is what, especially if you have taught developmental math forever, you have to be willing to be open to the fact that there are other ways that we can teach these students and then be prepared for college level math. We, and I was guilty of this too, are under this assumption that unless they take this sequence of courses, they're not prepared. The reality is there are students that get through our sequence and are still not prepared. And there are students who can pass some of our college level courses without those and do great. So that assumption of the developmental sequence that is essential is not always true. It's an assumption that we've lived with for a long time, but it hasn't always borne out to be true. However, I'm not going to say throw them all into stats or college algebra and give them some tutoring and watch the magic happen, because that's not real life. And that doesn't happen. Okay, so you can shrink it. You can do things like have like a developmental math, like a pathways course, and that can be a base course for students who aren't ready for a co-rec. And then you can have the students who are ready for a co-rec start in a co-rec like stats or liberal arts math. Co-rec college algebra, whole other animal, okay? Because it heavily relies on the prerequisite content, which anybody that's taught college algebra knows that. You got to be able to factor, and none of them can factor. We all know that. Okay, so the people that I've seen that have had more success with college algebra co-recs are ones that are taking that course and integrating intermediate algebra with it intentionally, as opposed to let's just do a 4-hour college algebra course and add 3 credit hours of co-rec. That doesn't usually work. So one of the things to keep in mind is that we need to identify from the get-go, do we think a student is headed towards STEM or non-STEM? It doesn't mean they can't change their mind. They can, but they need to pick. Because this idea that we've had forever that, well, we're just going to prepare them for all possible roads, they don't even get to get on the road, okay? Because they never get there. We never get them through. So the idea is pick something, okay? And most students that start in developmental are headed towards non-STEM unless they're in nursing, okay? Or possibly it's not STEM, but they might need college algebra if they're headed towards like elementary education or to business, then they might need college algebra. Not might, they do. But the bulk of students are in the start in developmental are not headed towards engineering, okay? They're headed towards some degree that's probably going to require statistics. And so they can start, most of them, not all, can start in a co-requisite. The question is, who does that? And I will tell you this, when you start with co-requisites, you have to open the door wider than you're comfortable with at first, meaning you have to let more students start in a co-rec, and you have to see who is not successful, and then you close the door. That is the golden rule of placement that's been around forever. If you talk to any testing center people, they'll tell you this as well. You will never know you are making an error with placement unless you let some students in that you're not sure about. Because there's students that could be passing, but if you don't let them in the door, you'll never know. So this is the thing to keep in mind. It is an iterative process. We do have to tweak. You will never get it right straight out of the gate. And that's okay. And if we err a little bit higher of letting a student start in a little bit higher class, that isn't always the worst. We've been erring in letting them start lower because we just don't want them to be unprepared. And the outcomes have been really bad, honestly. There's a lot of students who leave college altogether because they don't pass a math class. They can't pass like beginning algebra. So we've erred in one direction for a long time. Now we're going to try to err in another direction. Eventually, hopefully we'll get it right. It's going to take a while, and there's always going to be mistakes with it. Okay, so is there a way to redesign developmental math without co-requisites? Probably. I mean, especially those of you that are in Illinois that went to IMAC this year, College of Lake County was sharing something that they do where they have their students go through their gen ed math class before they allow them to take maybe like a college algebra class. They're basically, I mean, it's not a co-requisite gen ed math, but they are kind of using it that way, that it's doing some remediation for students. I think the thing to be open to, take it from someone who hated co-recs for a long time. I was super suspect of them. I was just like, that doesn't work. I changed my mind when I started seeing peers of mine that I totally trust. I know how they teach. And they were saying, yeah, we're actually starting with students who placed in a beginning algebra and they're passing my stats class and I haven't changed my stats class. I did not think that was possible, but it is sometimes. Now, is it with everybody? No. So I think opening your mind that they can work, but just, being cautious not to think that they're going to solve all our problems, because they're just not. And the schools and states that just say no dev ed, all co-recs, problem solved, just move all their dev ed students up to the college level course. And now they're all just sitting there. I mean, that's as, that to me is like the ostrich syndrome. We're just going to pretend it doesn't exist and put them all at college level. That doesn't work either. Okay. Does redesign equate to eliminating developmental math? For some it does, for me it doesn't. And I'm really adamant about that. I was just in a meeting with someone yesterday and they were like, do we really need developmental math? And I'm like, yeah, I think we do for some students. Do we need it for as many who have it now? No, but there are some students that it is too much to throw them into a co-rec, or they might be able to do it, but they're not willing to that become their whole schedule. Like devote the amount of time that's needed to be successful in that course in one semester. They might like having kind of like a bridge up to it. They want to have something first and then take the college level course. If we implement co-requisites, what happens to faculty who have only been teaching developmental math? Oh, such a good question and so important. The main thing I want to stress to teachers who've only been teaching developmental math, you are no longer, it's not like you're no longer important. You are so valuable, you're still needed. And from what I've seen, still have jobs. The idea is where you teach your content may shift physically sometimes on campus, because if you're in a department or a school where college level math is one place and developmental math is another, you may actually physically move to other places on campus. But you and your talents are still needed. How they are packaged with the college level content may change and probably will change, but it's not like you're unnecessary anymore. You're not. We still have students that are underprepared and they need help. And I will say this is one thing that especially developmental only faculty can often bring in spades, is they are super comfortable with the developmental student. Some college level faculty are also super comfortable with developmental students and some are not. And that's okay. We all have different courses that we prefer or don't prefer to teach. But if say you're being asked to teach developmental students and you've never taught them before, that's one place where working with your developmental only faculty can be a huge benefit, because this is the student they know really, really well. Like I know when I walk into my math literacy course on first day, I know I will have people that literally just decided to go to college the week before. I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna sign up for a math class. And they have no idea what they've gotten themselves into. I just know that and I accept that and truck along. But if you have never taught those students, you might be blown away by what they don't know. I'm just like, I'm never surprised. I'm like, I don't expect them to know everything. And when they do, yay, if they know something, if they can do fractions, rock on. I assume none of them can do fractions. And I'm never disappointed. And if you really look at it, there's a lot of things that even our calculus students, a lot of them would struggle with fractions. We kind of assume they're past all that. A lot of them would struggle with percents. That's, they're tricky. Okay, Illinois questions. All right, so let's have the caveat first. Number one, even if you're not in Illinois, there's all kinds of stuff here that's for you because your state or your school is going through the same things that Illinois is going through. Two, I have the legislation printed in front of me, highlighted. I read it regularly and I do the best I can with it, but I'm just doing the best I can with it, just like you are. I know the people who made the policy. I email them regularly and ask them questions and they get back to me, but sometimes they're still like, well, we're still in discussions on that. So I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to tell you what I know from the information I get. I'm going to do the best I can with it. And please don't go back and say, well, Kathy told us we have to do such and such. I'm just going off of what I have read and what I've learned. And there's possibilities that it could be incorrect. Okay, so do your due diligence, read the law before you go and make some crazy decision. All right, so for those who are not in Illinois, or if you're a high school person in Illinois, you're wondering what's happened. There has been a new huge bill that was signed into law earlier this year that is about equity. And it's about equity from STEM to STEM, from pre-K all the way through post-secondary. And it has a piece of it in it that has to do with developmental education. And if you're like, I didn't know that, you need to go find House Bill 2170, and it is Article 100. Article 100 is just the piece on the Dev Ed Reform Act. That's what it's called. Okay. And in it, one of the things it says is you have to use multiple measures placement according to what the presidents and CAOs, the chief academic officers, and the chief student service officers, all of them signed and agreed to. It was in 2018 was the last time they agreed to it. That document can change over time, and it likely will. The main thing in it is it includes high school GPA. So if your school has never used high school GPA, go get House Bill 2170, go get Article 100, and start looking at what it says about high school GPA, because you are going to have to address that. And that's a good thing. The high school GPA is highly predictive of student success. Please don't be afraid of it. Secondly, it says, I don't have it open, I should have it open for it, but it says, a school must maximize the probability that a student completes their math requirement in 2 semesters. So in my mind, I kind of like have casually said in 1 year, but it's super specific. It actually, and I forgot about this. It says 2 semesters. Okay. So what does that mean? And there's other things, and there's all kinds of reporting requirements. And it's like, they really expect you to, oh, here's the other big one. At scale is used regularly throughout this language, meaning you're not just going to be able to offer a section of co-rec and hope that that checks the box, because it won't. They are going to expect that you're doing this for the bulk of your students. Okay. And that's scary. That's some big changes. How do you go about doing that? I can't solve that for you in 5 minutes, but I'll tell you some things that we do help schools with. So it means that the idea of pre-beginning and intermediate algebra is not going to happen as is. Now, there are ways to use those elements in other ways. I mean, you get to still have developmental, but you're not going to be able to have semesters and semesters of it. That's the big thing. It's going to change. Okay, so how do we comply with the state requirements while still meeting the needs of students who come to us with skills significantly below college level? Okay, so the thing to remember is that we need to be thinking about their pathway first, okay? Think about if they are headed towards STEM or non-STEM, or really think, are they headed towards a field that's going to require college algebra or not, okay? If they need college algebra, that is totally different than if they need statistics. And there's a lot of students who can do very well in a statistics co-requisite course, very well. For those who can't, you can have a course below it. You could have a course like a math literacy, a non-STEM pathways type course, okay? And that course will serve a lot of different audiences. But I don't want you to assume that we're automatically throwing our students to the wolves. The very lowest students, now, even if that course is too much, because sometimes it is, then we have to get creative and sometimes tap into adult basic ed and other programs, bridge programs, tutoring centers. We sometimes have to get really creative on campus with what you already have to make it work within the structure of the law, because you are going to have students who are not ready for maybe like a pathways type course. That might be too much. So we have to try to think, how can we, and there are ways to do this. We're not breaking the rules, but we have to be creative with what you have. Okay, will the state provide a course description of a new 1 semester developmental math course? Yes and no, it already kind of exists. Our PMGE course exists. Are they going to provide something new? I don't think so, not that I've heard of. I mean, I guess they could, but I haven't hered of anything. If anybody does hear of anything, let me know, but I don't think so. How do you do it in 2 semesters or less? So that was the part that I mentioned before. You can do co-rec for students who are not ready for college level. or you can do something like, having like a non-STEM pathways course and then lead into, say, a college level course. You can do that non-STEM pathways course and lead into a combined intermediate college algebra class. Now I'm just hitting the highlights of this. There's devils in the details, people, and I know that, okay? So I know I'm not just like, you're just gonna go and like magically make it all happen. I know these are just some ideas. I want you to know that there are solutions that exist. But yeah, they take a little bit to get into place. Okay, there's some discussion about whether or not legislation allows for one semester dev standalone and then a co-rec with a college course to fulfill the one-year goal. Is that okay? Meaning you take like developmental in the fall and you take co-rec in the spring. I think that's allowed. I think the main thing is they've got to complete their college requirement. And when you complete a co-rec, you are completing the college requirement. So I don't see why that wouldn't be allowed. Wrong direction. Okay, this is for anyone. This is not just Illinois specific. How many credits do you recommend for an academic support or co-requisite course taken along with a college level math course? It varies. I've seen some schools go up to as many as 3 credit hours, but 1 or 2 credit hours are typically used. But then people play with the contact hours. Like they may only charge students 1 credit hour, but they may do that as like a lab hour and actually physically see them 2 contact hours. There's ways to play with that. The main thing that I've seen is you typically need more time with co-rec stat students. The content is more involved than like a gen ed math or liberal arts math course. Those you can usually do 1 hour and students can do pretty well in them. But if the content's a little harder, 2 hours would probably be better. It varies. If you're doing college algebra, it's hard. It's hard to have a 7 credit course where you have 4 credits of college algebra and 3 credits of co-rec. That's like their whole schedule. And they may get like 1 more course. It's overwhelming. It's going to affect their financial aid if they have to withdraw. So that's what I'm saying. When we're talking the STEM bound students or college algebra bound, we have to get more creative sometimes. And just adding a couple of hours on a college algebra isn't feasible for a lot of students. What measures do you recommend for placement into an academic support or co-requisite course? So you can use GPA, you can use ACT, SAT. The main thing is that, absolutely we can use different multiple measures and we can use this or this or this. We don't have to use this and this, although you can. But remember, when you first start a co-rec, let in more students than you think, and then track the data. Look at the data, who did and what. And is there any correlation between the students with like this placement score or this GPA or whatever? How did they do in the co-rec? I'm doing this with the school right now. We're looking at their data. We opened the door really wide. Not everybody passed. And so now we're trying to figure out who do we close it to so that the next semester more people are successful. Okay, what can you do to convince math faculty that a terminal math course should be a quantitative course instead of algebra based? How do you convince faculty that many algebraic manipulation problems such as factoring and quadratic are not essential for a terminal math course? This is hard, and we talked about this earlier. If you are in Illinois, we benefit because in Illinois, college algebra is not considered a terminal course for graduation. Like it's an elective, but they have to do a course like pre-calculus or math for elementary teachers or statistics or something like that. They can't just finish in like a college algebra course. A lot of states, college algebra is still the gold star, which I so want to change. Like I said, you're not going to change everybody's opinion, but I do think the more examples that we can show that don't come from you, if you can collect other examples from people that is reputable and have credibility and show them, it's like, look, they are not going to have to be doing this. They are allowed to use technology. We are a little behind, and I'm being nice. We're a lot behind, but we're a little behind with modernizing math, to say the least. Okay, we have it in our head that everybody factors. They don't. You can teach students to factor and use Desmos. And you can, and for what we actually need factoring for and the kinds of things they're going to do, for a lot of students, that will suffice. And then we'll say, well, that's not going to work for the students who go to calculus. Calculus needs improvement too. The way that we teach calculus is really built for students who are going to become mathematicians in pure mathematics. If you're actually going to use calculus in any field where it's applied, like in engineering, the way we teach calculus isn't up to date either. Okay, I digress. Okay, how many students do you recommend in a section of academic support or co-rec? The smaller, the better. I was talking to a faculty member the other day, and I think they have like 12 in theirs, and I was so jealous. I was like, oh, that'd be awesome. I would think you'd want 20 or fewer. If you could have, 12, that's amazing, because you need time to be able to get to people and talk to them. The whole intent is that co-rec, that time is higher touch, and that you get more contact with students. In your experience, does a study skills-based, just-in-time math content, community building, mentoring, tutoring, or a combination of these work best? I think a combination of those. You need, it's not going to be one thing. We're going to need study skills. We're going to need just-in-time remediation. They need to have time to work together, and they need time with you. All of that's necessary, which is why I'm going to share something really cool in just a second that will help you get there. Okay, next slide. Didn't realize it's gonna be the next slide. Okay, so coming soon, and I will get to questions if there's any more. Okay, so next month, we're gonna do a free webinar called Getting Started with Co-Recs. And I'm gonna go through the big categories of things that you need to be thinking about if you want to get started with Co-Recs. Again, I cannot teach you how to build a co-rec in an hour, okay? We're gonna hit some highlights of some pieces that you need to. Then what we're going to do in that one is go into much more detail about the PD program, the professional development program we're offering in July. Okay, so here's the, you are hot off the presses. Y'all are hearing about it first. Here's what it's going to be. I have contracted 2 math faculty. One teaches in Texas, one teaches in Kentucky, and they have been part of massive co-requisite at scale redesigns. They taught it for years. They tried lots of different things. They have lots of on the ground experience. Okay. What we did is we got together and we mapped out every single part of a co-rec. What are all the logistics issues? What are all the instructional issues? What about assessment? All of it. We mapped out what are all the pieces that teachers need to understand as they start to build one and feel confident about it. Then what they did was they broke that into, we're going to have 5 sessions in July, and even if you're on vacation, it's fine. You can still do this. There's going to be a short video at the beginning of the week, like 10 to 15 minutes that you watch. And then you have to fill in a quick Google form with what questions did you specifically have now that you've seen that? And then there's going to be a live element that they do every week with you where they teach something additional and answer the questions. And so they're going to go through step by step all the aspects of co-rec, okay, that they've actually done. Okay, so if you're interested in that, you want to know how you get into it, we're offering it through our Your STEM program. That's $199 for a teacher for 1 year. So you get that course, and then you also get 1 year of all the other stuff that we've done too. So we offered lots of programs last year, recordings of them, they're all in there. We've made tons of resources, they're all in there, okay? So that's where we are housing this new course right now. So if you're a Your STEM member and you're on here, you already get it. And if you're not, you can get Your STEM. You can either buy it yourself or ask your school to purchase it for you. Okay, and if you're thinking there's no way they'll do that, a lot of schools at this time of the year are spending down their budget because their budget closes June 30th. So it never hurts to ask, hey, do we have any extra funds left? Because sometimes they do. Okay. If your school has extra funds for fiscal year 21 and they're trying to get rid of them, and you know you're going to be implementing co-recs, one thing you might want to do is reach out to us. We are offering basically this course, this co-rec course and the Your STEM resources and all of that as a package with a set number of consulting hours, and it's for 2 years. So it's not just go take this course and go make it happen. We are going to continue to help you. I will continue to provide consulting support for your school, and the teachers, the 2 faculty members, I'm contracting them as well to provide consulting hours. So it's basically, it would just be, they pretty much be buying it for your department, and you get 2 years of support. That's the idea. Okay, that's if you know you're doing a co-rec. Okay, one more thing. If you're not sure what you're doing, you don't know which end is up, and there isn't buy-in or consensus, the other thing that we do that you should consider is we have something that we rolled this out recently. We haven't shared a ton about it. We're going to share more about it in the near future, but it's called the win-win. This is the thing that I do with schools, and it works. And I do this with schools regularly. Okay. What we do is I sit down with the faculty and we treat this whole redesign thing as a math problem. It's like, this is where we need to get to, and these are our constraints. And that could be a law, a mandate, an administrator's edict, whatever. And we go through and we hash out, what are the things people are worried about? What are the things that people really want to make sure we still include? What are they wanting to protect? You know, all those issues. And then we build a plan for your redesign. And we do it in, it takes 60 to 90 days. That's normally how long it takes to do it. And when we're done, then you have a plan that you can go execute. And if you want us to help you with it, you can, we can, but, or you can just, that you can do it yourself. And this is one of the things that we do. I go through, not only do I talk to you guys and I want to hear what you're really worried about, what you're happy about, all of that. We look at your data, we look at what you're doing right now, what you've tried before, what's worked, what's not, where are there tensions in the department. We look at all that stuff and we figure out what are we going to do more of or less of, or, you know, because you already have a ton of stuff. Most schools have been trying things for years, but they may not work together and they may not, you know, they may not have really moved the needle. Okay. So that's what we do is we look at what are we going to do more of? What are we going to do less of? We don't, again, always have to invent the wheel, but we have to make them work together, the things that you have, the pieces you have. So if you are interested in that, why it works is because we work on buy-in and I work directly with faculty. It's funny, I was working with an administrator yesterday and she goes, "You're so brave." I want you to know if you're faculty that a lot of administrators are, you're like, oh, faculty, they can be tough. I like faculty. I know we can be tough. But it's because we care. And it's because we're in the classroom and because we see a different side of this whole situation than others on campus do. Okay. And I want to work with you. So if you're interested in all of that, reach out to us. We'll get you more details. There's going to be more information coming on that. So how do you reach out? Just email us at support@almeeducation.com. And you can be like, I just want to get into the Your STEM thing. How do I do that? We'll get you that information. If you're wanting basically the 2-year package, we'll get you that information. If you're wanting the win-win, we'll do that. Usually the win-win, it takes a couple of conversations. We'll talk to your administrator, you, your department, and then we figure out how to go about doing that. But we can do it. That's the main thing. And why am I optimistic? Because I've done it over and over and over again. It's possible. A lot of this takes commitment and engagement. And I am dog with a bone commitment. Okay, we will get this figured out and we will make it happen in a way that you can live with. That's really important to me. Okay, so I literally have 2 minutes left because I don't want to keep you guys extra. So what questions do you still have? And you can unmute. You don't have to type them. Am I going to have to do my anyone Bueller?
That PD that's available in July, what was that for again?
Okay, so it will be, it's a we haven't really named it, it's just a co-requisite PD, but it's going to be offered through our Your STEM subscription that we have. So if you buy 1 year into Your STEM, you'll get that program and all the other resources we have. So if anybody wants to see Your STEM, or if you're just like, I don't want to have to email you, Kathy, if you go to yourstem.net, then let me put that in the chat. Oh, duh, the chat's right there. Yourstem.net. You can just go and you can purchase it, or your school can do it, and they don't have to have a credit card. We can invoice them. That's fine. But you get all kinds of cool stuff with it. Okay, what other things do you have questions about? If you don't want to ask here and you have other things, we can always set up a call and just talk through if there's something else, or email me. Because like I said, this is what I do day in and day out. Is there anything else? All right, let me know if there is. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And reach out if you need anything. Bye all.